Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is the 9th film by Quentin Tarantino, and it's basically a love letter to 1960s Hollywood. If you've ever listened to Tarantino gush in interviews about the films that he loved growing up and what influenced his style, this film is kind of like all of those sentiments put into a narrative. The story follows the struggling career of actor Rick Dalton, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, and his stuntman Cliff Booth, played by Brad Pitt. So Rick used to be the star of a very successful show called Bounty Law back in the day, and now with the show long over and Rick beginning to age, his career is reduced to the occasional guest spot or supporting role, mostly as the villain. And as yet another blow to his ego, he has to live next door to a post-Rosemary's Baby Roman Polanski and his rising star wife Sharon Tate. His stuntman Cliff isn't doing much stunt work either, and his current job is basically being Rick's personal assistant. Pitt and DiCaprio have really wonderful chemistry in this movie, and it was really fun to watch. They play so well off of each other, with this dynamic of Rick being like an emotional wreck who's constantly obsessing over his career and acting ability, and Cliff kind of being his opposite in the sense that he's really content with his simple life and doesn't really let shit bother him all that often. So we get a lot of funny moments between the two of them. Their relationship was one of my favorite aspects of this film, and I really hope that they end up doing more work together in the future because they're now my favorite on-screen couple. Please make this a thing, Hollywood. Thank you. Speaking of Brad Pitt, I feel like people forget how great he is at playing really quirky characters. He's a great leading man for sure, but when I think about his career, all of my favorite roles of his are when he played these weird supporting characters. You've got Tyler in Fight Club, Jeffrey in 12 Monkeys, Floyd in True Romance, and my personal favorite, of course, Chad from Burn After Reading.
Is that my date list?
No, fuck.
Brad Pitt is legit funny, and the role of Cliff suits him so perfectly. It's like all of his strengths as an actor on display in this one role. You've got the tough guy, handsome man stuff they have him do in a lot of his leading roles, combined with a lot of comedic material that allows him to really shine. This role fits him like a glove, and it was a delight to watch. Leo did an outstanding job comedically in this too. This is the funniest I've seen him since The Wolf of Wall Street. There's an entire scene of him throwing a tantrum by himself in his trailer that had me crying. Margot Robbie did a great job as Sharon Tate. She didn't have a tremendous amount to do in this film, but it kind of makes sense because her presence is just kind of there as this juxtaposition to Rick. She enjoys her career and doesn't seem to have a very big ego, while Rick's ego is constantly ruining his life. This film is structured in a way that differs from Tarantino's other work, tonally too. A lot of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood feels like a hangout movie. The tension and violence that are sprinkled pretty evenly throughout his other films are saved for later on in this one. Until the Manson family actually interacts with one of the main characters, which again isn't for quite a while, the movie's pretty chill and low stakes, which I really liked. It was a nice change for Tarantino, and the slower paced, laid back scenes allowed him to really show off that 1969 LA production design that they busted their asses to get perfect. And it looks incredible. His intention was to show LA through the romantic lens of someone who grew up there, and it's very effective. As far as negatives go, I really only have one criticism, and it's just to do with one scene in particular. It's not about the ending, but if you don't want to know what happens at the Bruce Lee part, go ahead and skip to this point in the video. So, I love the tone of heightened reality that Tarantino has in a lot of his films. In fact, it's one of my favorite things about his work. I have suspended my disbelief for 8 films now, almost 9, without batting an eye. I believe that the bride could punch her way out of a casket after being buried alive. I have no problem with the idea of Hitler being murdered by fucking Eli Roth. And yeah, I believe that God came down from heaven and stopped those bullets. But when I saw Cliff beat Bruce Lee in a fight for the first time in 16 years, since Tarantino's films first came into my life and changed it forever, I looked at the screen in front of me and said, no. It was just weird to see the guy who's influenced so much of Tarantino's work finally make an appearance as a character, and he's just used to show how strong Cliff is. And I do understand that this scene serves a number of functions. It's used to show why Cliff is disliked in the stunt community and how ridiculously strong he is, so that the events that happen later in the film are more believable. but I feel like there are a number of ways that could have been done without disrespecting my boy Bruce. Mike Moe did an excellent job with his accent and mannerisms. Like, it was totally perfect casting, but what ends up going down in the scene along with how much of a dick they made him was just odd to me. But hey, maybe I'm biased. Maybe I just love Bruce Lee too much. And I understand that it took a fictional character to beat him in a fight, but to be honest, if at that part of the movie Superman would have shown up and whooped his ass, I'd still be like, no. Bruce could have figured it out. He never loses.
Well, I just reject your hypotheses.
So yeah, other than that, I really enjoyed Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and think it's still pretty great. I was thoroughly entertained throughout, and yeah, you should go see it. Out of 10. You know, it's actually kind of weird that this is the first time I've really talked about Tarantino on this channel because he was my first favorite director. I mean, he's still one of my favorites, but the deeper you go as a film nerd, you find it hard to have just one favorite. He's still my number one, but along with a lot of other number ones, if that makes sense. I remember the first time I ever saw a film of his. I was around 14 years old and watched Kill Bill Volume 1, and my little sheltered Catholic schoolgirl brain exploded, and the way that I looked at film changed forever. I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. I didn't know that you could just do that. And I immediately consumed every Tarantino film I could get my hands on. Come to think of it, I probably wouldn't even be doing this channel if it wasn't for him. His work really kicked my interest in film into high gear, and every time he's come out with a film since that first time I saw Kill Bill, it's been a real treat and something to look forward to. Tarantino has said that as far as writing and directing as a package, he wants his catalog of films to stop at 10. So we're only gonna get one more, and that makes me really emotional. Looking ahead to when I watch the credits roll on whatever his 10th and last film ends up being, I'll probably be a sobbing mess whether I like the movie or not, because much like the theme of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it will be the end of an era. So yeah, time to end this video before it gets even more depressing. Sorry, thank you for watching, bye.